Welcome, everyone. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and where you're joining us from. We will give it a couple minutes as everyone joins, and then we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. Hope your Sunday is off to a good start or ending in a good way if you're joining us from other time zones. Feel free to introduce yourself via the chat and where you're joining us from. For those of you I have not met, my name is MK. I am a Women Who Code Leadership Fellow, and I have Charu here today to speak with us. As everyone joins, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and where you're joining us from. It's always great to see how many different members we have all over the world. We have a member from Argentina, India, Brazil. Welcome, everyone. We are going to get started in about 1 or 2 minutes as everyone is joining. Feel free to introduce yourself, grab yourself a coffee or a glass of water, whatever you are drinking. We're really excited for this webinar today. Welcome. Incredible. All right, so as you join, feel free to introduce yourself via the chat. Feel free to drop your LinkedIn, however you would choose to network with everyone. My name is MK. I work for Women Who Code. I am a leadership fellow. Part of my job is to welcome our speakers and help facilitate different speaking and webinars. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, I'm going to go through some webinar logistics, as well as if this is your first webinar, welcome to Women Who Code. I'm going to go into a little bit about what we're all about here, and then I'm going to introduce Charu to start off the webinar. So that being said, welcome. Today's webinar, everyone please welcome Charu. She is a UX designer at Google. We are here today to learn tips to design a portfolio, not just speaking about user experience, but showing real impact. So welcome. That being said, a couple of webinar logistics. As I've said, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and where you're joining us from. It's always exciting to see where everyone is joining us from today. We will do Q&A at the end. Feel free to submit your questions throughout as you think of them via the Zoom Q&A functionality. And then I'm going to jump back on and help facilitate Q&A at the end of this session. Additionally, this is currently being recorded and we will post it to YouTube. It generally takes about a week to get uploaded. I will post that link in the chat. It's our Women Who Code YouTube channel where you can find all of our webinars from all of our different tracks being posted. So that being said, welcome. If this is your first Women Who Code webinar, or if you've had a couple with us, here to talk about what Women Who Code is all about. And if you're interested in getting involved, there's plenty of opportunities there. Our mission is to inspire women to excel in technology careers, and we envision a world where women are represented as tech execs, founders, VC, board members, and software engineers, and we believe that this journey starts here. I'm here to remind everyone that we do have a strict code of conduct. We are an inclusive community dedicated to providing an empowering experience for everyone. This event and all of our events are intended to inspire women to excel in their technology careers, regardless of gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, physical appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, age, religion, socioeconomic status, and we like to joke preferred programming languages. So welcome, and please understand that this event as well will adhere to the code of conduct. Our movement to all of our members and everyone around the world is that the world has changed drastically in the last year. We understand that. Our hope is that we can be a connecting force for you all and create a sense of belonging while the world is being asked to isolate. I joined Women Who Code about a year ago, started working for them, and I can say it's been a huge connecting force for me during this time. So welcome, and we hope to continue to be that force for you as the world is going to continue to change in the next couple of months, hopefully. That being said, we have over 250,000 members. We have 70 networks in 20 different countries, and we have members in over 120 different countries. So all of our events are now online and welcoming of anyone from anywhere. We put on over 2,000 events annually like this webinar. And also we do tickets to conferences as well as scholarships. And we do have a lot of companies that reach out to us to post their job descriptions specifically for leveraging that Women Who Code community. So if you're on the job market and needing resources to help prepare you for those interviews, we have all of those here as well, but ultimately here to provide infinite connections. That being said, today we are here with Women Who Code front end. It doesn't stop there. We have 5 other different technical tracks. If you're interested in data science, mobile, blockchain, Python, or cloud, we also do events at all of those different tracks. And each track is designed to provide tech talks, workshops, tutorials, trainings, technical study, project groups, webinars like this one, networking opportunities. So if you're interested in learning a different tech stack or interested in any of those other areas of expertise, feel free to check those out at womenwhocode.com/digital. If you're interested in getting involved, please reach out to me directly. My email is mkcomer@womenwhocode.com. Part of my job and part of the thing I also love about my job is working with the volunteer team. And our volunteer team is a bunch of women from all over the world that help do all of our social media, help us find speakers, and help us and also speak on different webinars. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me directly. Or if you're interested in not just front end and you're interested in the other tracks, you can reach out to any of the other fellows at mobile, Python, and all of those other names at womenwhocode.com. That being said, finally, if your company is interested in sponsoring an event, we partner with different companies to put on webinars, and we also help do job resources and networking. If you're interested in bringing your company to Women Who Code, reach out to our partnerships team at womenwhocode.com. Just wanted to put some events on your radar. So we do have a front end Friday Slack study group. It happens every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. and we rotate the topics, and that's done by one of our lead volunteers, Cecilia. She's incredible. I've heard great things about the session. We also are doing a panel with Women Who Code Python. So we oftentimes collaborate between the tracks. And I actually will be paneling and speaking on that about code reviews, code quality, and developer productivity on Thursday, May 27th. So check out those at womenwhocode.com/digital or at our front end page specifically. I also wanted to make everyone aware that we are really excited. We are doing a full digital conference on June 10th and 11th around the entire world. It's called Connect Reimagine. Here we're bringing speakers in to advance your tech skills, work on your career refresh, and an opportunity to reconnect and join that global community. We are celebrating 10 years of Women Who Code with Connect Reimagine. Tickets are on sale, so feel free to buy them. And if you are in need of a sponsorship or a scholarship, we do have tickets on discount, and we're able to provide scholarships to people that are unable to afford tickets at this time. So please check that out. We look forward to joining you. I love our digital events. We put on a Connect last year at the same time, and it was such an amazing opportunity to see everyone around the world get together and continue to learn and network. So that's my spiel. That being said, I'm more than excited to welcome Charu, and the slide is not changing, of course, exactly when it needs to change. Sorry about that. All right, welcome. This is a webinar on the case of the design portfolio. Charu is a UX designer at Google. She's excited to be here with us. Let's all give her a warm welcome. Welcome. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the camera and the mic onto you.
Hey everyone. Hi, can you all hear me properly and see? Great. Firstly, like, this is such a good initiative and I'm so glad to be a part of it. I don't know if you all are designers or if you're interested in design, but I hope this will be helpful for you if you are looking to maybe move and make a switch to UX design, or you're already a designer and you want to just grow in your career and get a job which you want to, like, which you're looking for from a very long time. So I hope this is helpful for you. And okay, with that, can I share my screen now so that I can start?
Yes.
Cool. Let me just share my screen. Give me a second.
Looks great.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, so as I said, we all have been, I'm assuming that we right now, like today, whoever is joining me, and I saw in the chat that you all are from different places of the world, so I'm just so excited to be here. Yeah, so I'm assuming that you already have done some work in UX design, or you have a bit of experience, or you've already like focused in growing your career in UX design, and maybe you already know like how to do your job and you're already awesome at it, let's assume, and maybe you are already doing pretty good, but when it comes to maybe presenting your work as UX case studies, um, I don't know if you are able to do justice to it right now. So I'm just here to share some techniques and some tips which I have worked for me in past few years as a designer, and it has always helped me in sharing my case studies and my portfolio with others in a better way. So I want to talk about this framework which I have used over time. And yeah, before I get there, I also want to send you all some virtual hugs, because currently the times are messy. And if you are in the places of the world where it's already messed up outside and we're all stuck at home, it becomes difficult. So I'm so glad that we're all making time to do things we love, and we're all motivated to do it. So just some virtual hugs, and with on that warm note, I want to start today's session. And yes, feel free to put down the questions you have in the chat, and I'll be looking at it later, and we can take them up. So yes, with that, I want to introduce myself. Hi everyone, I'm Charu, and just to give a little background about myself first, so that you know what kind of work I've been doing. So currently, I work in India as a UX designer, and I work in Google. I'm a part of a I'm actually a founding member in a small team which is building some products which are basically helping all products across Google to get better insights, to just get better. And currently, we are still working on our product, and it's not launched yet, so I cannot talk about it much. And it has been going great. Before this, before joining Google, I was working at Microsoft, and I stayed there for a few years. And I was a member of the founding team who worked on the first Microsoft Office app, and we launched it last year. And I worked on a couple of other projects. You might be familiar with a few of these. And I actually started my journey in Zomato, which is a food tech company in India, and it's a pretty popular startup. And I was very glad to get a job in Zomato early in my career, which really helped me grow. And I got to work on different types of products in the consumer space, and especially in the food ordering and restaurant finding and subscription plans kind of things. So I had a great learning experience overall while working at these places. And one thing, over these years, I have been on the both sides of the picture. I have been the person who has been sending my portfolios to recruiters, to interviewers, and sharing my case studies with them. Also, I've been on the other side where I have been shortlisting other people's portfolios for hiring, as well as I've been in the presentations where a lot of designers and really smart designers come in and present their work. And sometimes they go so well, I take notes and I learn and apply it for myself. And based on that, I've created this entire presentation today. But one thing which I have observed in all these years is that design is not just about doing, and there is a lot of show and tell which is involved in our jobs. And in fact, like majority of the work is about showing and telling and getting people on board with your ideas if you are a designer. And that's what make me thinking that if it is a lot about showing and telling, then what are the things that you should keep in mind while you're preparing your portfolio for a job interview, or you want to get started in UX design? So what is it that I need to keep in mind? So I decided, like I looked at a lot of things from my own experiences by giving interviews in all these places, and uh, being present in a lot of interviews and portfolio presentations. I figured that there are three phases of how you can go about it. I have created this framework, but this is just for my personal use, but I'm also sharing it today. I hope this really helps you in planning and creating and actually delivering your portfolio presentations. And when I say I'm talking about UX case studies or UX portfolios, I intend to cover the entire journey end to end, from the moment you have started preparing to the moment you're giving a presentation, because I think that's what realistically it's like. That's why I've divided it into three phases. The first phase I call foreseeing, and if we get into the details, by foresee I mean that like how can you really predict what is going to happen, uh, and make some assumptions, but at the same time do some research. So what are the things which we need to keep in mind when we are actually planning for applying for a job or just create our portfolio? And a few things which I personally always keep in mind is these three things. So first is your audience. I think it's the key here. You need to really look at audience as your as if you're designing your portfolio for them. They are your users, so you need to empathize with them and know what are their clear goals. Then based on that context you have built, you can leverage the context. And lastly, how do you prepare the right ingredients for your presentation? Well, firstly, let's dive into audience. So what exactly do I mean when I'm talking about audience? So there could be a lot of types of audiences to which your portfolio needs to cater to. It could be for recruiters who are just maybe just deciding, I'm sorry, maybe who are just deciding that uh, do they want to forward your profile for other rounds of interviews, or maybe it is for interviewers who want to decide that are you a fit for the company or not. So you need to really understand what your who your audience is, what are they like, understand their objectives, what are they looking for in your portfolio. Do your homework. So when I say do your homework, it means you need to actually focus on which company is it, and maybe there are some projects in your portfolio which are more relevant to that particular company. For example, if you're applying for a company which is an education related company, and you have a portfolio which sorry, you have a project which is about around that, you need to maybe prioritize it. And that's how doing some homework in this space can really help you, and in deciding what is the right case study which you want to showcase. uh, Next, I now by the time you already have some context, you already understand who your audience is. Now is the time to decide what do you want to pick in your portfolio. So one of the things I keep in mind is the altitude. By altitude, I mean that what is the kind of depth I want to go into when I'm sharing my work. Is it what is the right level of fidelity or detail which I want to show? Do I want to show a lot of width where I have worked on multiple types of projects, or do I want to deep dive into a few case studies? Generally, what works is when you're sharing your work, sharing portfolio for just sending it to a recruiter, kind of width really helps, where you have covered different types of projects. But when you are presenting in person for a company and you have a portfolio presentation, I think a better approach is just picking few case studies and getting deep into it. uh, Next is about showing the impact. So we have to understand that not everyone has a lot of time and they are generally distracted, like all of us. So whatever your impact is, or whatever your key messages from that case study, or whatever your key highlight is, you need to keep it up front. The impact could be how did you impact the business, how did you change the numbers or data, or even if it's not launched and if it's a hypothetical project, you can write about how did you collaborate, what were your learning. So just make sure that you're crisp and concise and you're keeping the impact upfront, so that even if they do not go through your entire presentation, they know from in just first few minutes they understand what is the impact which you have made. Lastly, be aware of what your audience's context is. Are they someone who's reading through your portfolio over email and offline, or you're presenting them directly? So if you don't have that information, feel free to ask your recruiters. They will be more than happy to give you that information. But make sure you know all of these things so that you can customize your presentation for that particular topic, or your portfolio for that particular scenario, right? Lastly, when you already have done your research and you assuming that you already know a lot about your where you want to apply for, and even if you don't have a company or a goal in mind, just having a frame of reference is helpful, that so that like you at least know that maybe with this portfolio I want to work for a technology company, for a startup or something like that. At least have a frame of reference in mind, and that can still help you a lot in deciding what you want to keep in your portfolio. Now, one of the things which come in handy is always that be authentic. What I mean is that when you're really presenting your work, take a few minutes or take a few seconds to introduce yourself, to tell a bit about yourself. Even if you're sending over your portfolio, make sure you have put in something about yourself up in there. Not from that I don't mean that just put like uh, your current role and your profile, but a little bit more about yourself. Maybe how was your design journey like, what is the thing you believe in, or even something fun. So just take a few seconds and introduce yourself, be unique. Like I personally taken some, like whenever I'm presenting, I take in a first 3-4 slides to just tell about my background, where I'm coming from and how I started in design. And I think that establishes a connection right there, so make sure you don't forget it. The next thing is that a lot of times you will get this thing about like, hey, just put 3 or 4 UX case studies and that should be sufficient. But my recommendation is don't stick to any kind of rule. There are absolutely no rules. It's up to you. How many case studies do you think is sufficient for you? So if you think like there are two which where I have worked as a lead designer, and one where I was maybe working on a small project, but there were a lot of constraints. So you learn something new and you want to put in, feel free and just go ahead and put in those case studies. Don't be bound by it. The next thing is that you have to make them colorful. When I say make them colorful, it doesn't mean literally colorful, but what I mean is that you should introduce them like a story. Tell about like what are the people you work with, maybe if you faced a failure, if you had some challenges and how did you overcome that, if you had to do some iterations, if you had a very tight timeline, so how did you prioritize your work? Just put all of those things. So the thing about case studies it is that we often feel that it's about showing our final result of the projects, but from a recruiter's or from an interview's point of view, it's a lot about what was your journey like, how did you go about it, what are the people you collaborated with, and how creative you are, how can you come up with multiple options for something, for a problem, how focused you are on understanding your users. So these are the signals which they are looking for. So make sure that you are not just focused around showing your final output, which is these screens which you design, but show the entire journey. And that's how you can these are some of the things you can apply to decide what are the case studies which you want to showcase in your portfolio. Now let's come to the part where you already have these ingredients ready and you're jumping into constructing the portfolio. And here you need to be very conscious about, oh, are you able to achieve what you decided or not, right? So a few things which have worked for me. Uh, so the first thing is, what I believe in is that one size doesn't fit all. From this, I mean that the idea of having one fixed set of case studies and thinking that it will work for all scenarios, I haven't seen it working a lot of times. Whenever I've seen a designer putting in some efforts and kind of customizing the portfolio for that particular role, or just having that thing in the back of their mind when they're sending it over, I think it really helps and it creates an impression that you are really interested in diving deep in details. So what I really mean is that be iterative. So whatever format you choose, like even if it's a website or it's a portfolio PPT or PDF, right? Make sure that you have the format available where you can make iterations of it, because what happens is, you might want to sometimes change the sequence of your case studies, or sometimes you want to highlight different things in your case studies. So be iterative with it. Make sure whenever you're starting the work on your portfolio, choose a format mindfully, which can be iterated, where you can make changes, edit it later, right? And lastly, validate it. From What I exactly mean by this is, consider this as a concept which you're testing with users, and it's more like you're doing a validation, right? Show it around, show it to few people, and just ask them what are their thoughts, and I'm sure you're gonna get great advice. So don't skip this part. This has always helped me a lot. And finally, talking about the anatomy, this is in no way a template, but I think putting in all these points really help. If you think this doesn't work for you, feel free to customize it. That's what the whole point about making it yours. But mostly, I have followed this format where I start with the overview, wherein I talk about what was the main goal of the project, and one key impact which I've made in that project. So that in that particular overview, your audience has got the idea of what is coming on next. This in the second part, I think it's important is stating the problem. If you're stating it correctly, it ensures that it gives an impression that you're understanding the user problem pretty well, and frame it correctly. The third thing is, talk a lot about users and audiences. Even if you're doing your personal independent project, you should put in the research which you have done, the users you've talked to, and be creative when you are putting it out there. Maybe visualize it in creative ways, but put what research is there which you've done. It shows how focused you are towards your users. Fourth thing is, you need to put in what are the roles and responsibilities which you had in this project, because it often happens that you are a part of big team and you're working with this big team, and often while you're presenting, your audience is a bit confused that, okay, have you done this work or not, and things like that. So it's better to always state it up front that these are your roles and responsibilities. The next thing you should talk about is scope and constraints. So this really helps because no design is without constraints, right? And putting it out there, even constraints which were technical in nature, maybe it was related to timeline, maybe it was related to resources, or whatever you have faced, put it out there. It really helps building in that story. Or if you had to manage a lot of stakeholders while you were doing the work, so figure some creative ways, be imaginative, but put the take one slide or some space to put out the scopes and constraints. The next part is always talk about your process. Process the key. How did you go about it? what were the steps which you took for while you were working on the project, and finally talk about the outcomes and what has come out of the entire project, what was your contribution. And maybe even if you think that there were some things which you could not do in that time frame, you can mention it later and talk about the takeaways and learnings that maybe I could not implement these designs because of these and these constraints, but this is, if I get another chance, this is what I'm planning to do next. It really shows that you have a long term thinking and you're not bound by any constraints. So I think that really completes the entire picture. You can use this template, or you can create and customize it and make it your own. If you think you want to start the story from the constraint, then start it from there. And if you think that process was it was very creative, you can start showing that first and maybe the other things later. So make it your own. I think that is another key. And finally, coming to the part where you are actually presenting and sharing your portfolio. So one of the things which I think always works is, think of it as you're hosting a session, or as you're hosting, like you're inviting your friends and family over lunch. And how do you host it, right? So think of your portfolio presentation as that, because everyone who's attending it are, or if they're looking at it, they are just spending time, they're giving your time to you. So you need to ensure that you are making it enjoyable. And the next thing is owning up to what are the things you've not done. So diving a little deep into these details, when I say be a host, is always prepare for all the technical glitches, and because we know all of these things happens, right? Especially in this remote situation. Make sure that if your recruiter has not told you that how the presentation will be conducted or things like that, make sure you already have the information around it. The next thing is, get your audience's attention. That's the key, because as I said, they're generally already distracted. So you can be like, I generally try to be very crisp and concise with my case studies. Wherever required, I dive deep into the details, but I try to be crisp. That has worked for me. But you need to figure out your own way and see, like, you can test with a few people and see that what is it which gets most attention, and maybe you can highlight that more. It's more of an iterative process. The third thing is, always take care of all the questions and follow-ups which are being talked about during your presentation. It just shows that you take care of the details. And sometimes, like, it really helps if you already have covered a lot of things in your presentation, like all the problems and what did you learn and all of these things, because generally they come up as questions later. So if you have already covered it in your presentation, it's always a plus. And finally, think of it as that your goal is not just to show what you've done, but it's more likely it's to build that relationship, leave that mark, so that you, even if you don't get hired, they remember you, right? So that should be your goal, and that really helps. Sometimes it happens that it might take longer, but they'll come back to you, and maybe there will be like tons of great opportunities. So make sure that you're not just focused on sharing what your work, but you're really collaborative. You're showing that you're quite collaborative and open in nature. So that is another thing which has helped me. And finally, I think that owning up to whatever you've not done helps a lot. So firstly, be prepared after your presentation is done. Be prepared for bombs which will be dropped in your way. There will be tons of questions like, you didn't do this, and why didn't you follow a certain process, or what was your thinking behind it. So be ready to tackle those, because that is a part of process and it will be coming your way. And in that you might figure out there were some mistakes and gray areas which you might have left, or you didn't work had the time to work on. So from like what has worked with me always is that just say it upfront that I didn't have the time, or I didn't work on the certain things because of these constraints. And if I get another chance, this is what I will do, or this is what I've learned from this thing which I did in past. So sharing failures is actually okay. But I would say it's a plus. Whenever I always try to frame my case studies in three parts. One part where I've done really well in a project, and I want to highlight that how did I take ownership, manage stakeholders, and I built on a lot of creative ideas. In one of the projects, I try and showcase where I failed, and what was my learning from it. And if possible, I talk about how I implemented those learnings in that project again. And generally the third case study is a little bit fun and around my hobbies related to design, so that I think it completes the entire picture. But your own ingredient should be yours. So do some thinking around it, and then see what's unique to you and how do you want to frame your portfolio. And yeah, I think sharing stories where you failed is always appreciated in most of the places. So just to reflect back what we saw till now. So first phase, as I talked about, is about predicting and foreseeing what's going to come your way, who's your audience, understanding their context, and preparing the right ingredients for them. And for that, you might want to create a few versions of your portfolio and be open to do that. I know that it will take a little bit of work, but if you're starting out in your career, it will really help later on. um, or else at least follow this structure of framing the case study. It should cover a lot of things. And finally, when you're presenting your portfolios, one of the things you need to keep in mind is you're the host and you are accountable for that entire time. So you need to make sure you're making it valuable for everyone. And don't be scared about not talking about the places where you missed something or the gray areas or mistakes. Just own up to it. So I think this is always, all of these tips and techniques have always helped me, and I believe it might be helpful for you also next time. Just treat this as a checklist, and I hope you can uh, continue to kill it with your portfolio presentations after this. So with that, I am done. And if you have more questions, you can reach out to me. And yes, we can actually take on questions if there are. Yes, over to Mary. Yep. Hello.
Hi, sorry about that. I got
No
stuck
problem.
on mute. All right, at this time, does anybody have any questions? Opening up the floor to questions. Feel free to submit them in Q&A or drop them in the chat. Thank you so much. That was an incredible webinar. Very well done, and I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you. Great. Oh, sorry, I didn't know if there was an echo. Oh, I hope there was no echo for
Oh, no.
everyone. Oh, cool, cool.
Does anybody have any questions at this time?
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to just put it down here. We'll take it. If you don't have, no problem. Yeah. I just hope you had a good time. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If anybody has, okay, we did have a question just come in. I'm planning for a career transition into UX design. Do you have any tips for me?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So what is your background? Is it I'm assuming that you don't have a background in design. I think the best thing is to do some projects and create the first version of your portfolio. That is going to help whenever you're applying, and it will just build credibility. If you're absolutely new and if you haven't done any work and you're thinking what is it I should put in my portfolio, I think you can just take some hypothetical case studies and just like design, take a hypothetical problem, and take a hypothetical design problem or a user problem which you have noticed around you, and just design something for that. For starters, that is good enough, and build a portfolio and just put some case studies. So I think that will get you your maybe first few opportunities, and I think you can take it from there. So yeah.
Great. That's great advice. Okay, we had 2 more questions come in. Do you have any good portfolios of data scientists? Could you potentially share them?
Uh, I don't have a lot of awareness about data science. I'm more into design, but I'll see if I get anything.
Another question came in from Catherine. Can you speak a little bit about important skills of UI UX design that can set you apart from others?
Yeah, I think like few skills, I mean, apart from your usual UI UX skills, which will you'll get to know, like your creativity, how much do you know about UX processes, UX focus, user focus. I think a few skills which really can set you apart are really foundational, like how good are you with communicating your ideas. That's very important. And how good are you with managing stakeholders. When I say managing, it's not just like communicating, but it's about how do you work in a way that everyone is aligned with you. I think all of these basic skills actually set you apart. Other than that, of course, you can take on some design courses and you can learn the skills which are must haves, like all those skills which I talked about. So yeah.
It's great advice. It's great advice. Another question came in. Any interview tips for those starting out in the field?
Yeah, I think yeah, I also covered it in the presentation a little bit, but if you're starting out and if you don't have a lot of work, you should be really open about telling that you do not have that experience, but make sure that with saying that you already have done some hypothetical work or some sort of work, or you have a portfolio, so that you cover up for it and you can say that I haven't got any opportunity, but I have done all of this work by through just like my own learning, and generally self-learned. There are a lot of self-learned designers, and it's appreciated a lot if you've learned it on your own, and if you have really like not gotten a training or anything, but you have really learned it on your own. So it's always good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice. Another question just came in. Do you have suggestions or resources for ensuring accessibility for users with disabilities?
Oh, sure. I do have some resources. I think you can look up for, there is a Microsoft's guide for designing for accessibility. That's really good. I think it covers a lot of a lot of disabilities around, like not just like blind, but low vision, deaf. So I think it covers it covers them all. So that is a pretty good resource. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Does anybody have any other questions at this time? Great questions coming in. Appreciate everyone's questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot. These are really amazing questions, and yeah, I'm hoping it's helping you. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to drop in.
Absolutely. That's great. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, nope, yep, I don't see any other questions that came in. On behalf of Women Who Code, thank you so much. Everyone attending, please join me in saying thank you to Charu for all of her time in her presentation. It was so great and so resourceful. And thank you for taking time to give back and teach our community more about UX design.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you everyone for joining. And I just hope like it was fun for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing the work you're all doing. So continue it. It's really motivating. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if you're seeing this chat, but lots of great comments coming in. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Thank you a lot. Very great presentation, wonderful presentation, and a huge thank you. Thank you to our audience for attending. And as I said, this recording of this webinar will be posted to our YouTube channel in about a week. So again, thank you again, and everyone have a good rest of your day or evening, wherever you are. And we will see you on another webinar soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.